The emergence of an alleged international arrest warrant against Julius Malema has plunged South Africa's political landscape into profound uncertainty, igniting a crisis that has proven impossible for leaders, institutions, or citizens to ignore, as what began as quiet speculation among political insiders rapidly evolved into a national and international controversy dominating headlines, social media platforms, and parliamentary debate. Although investigative and prosecutorial authorities have remained largely silent on the specific details of the case, sources within diplomatic and legal circles suggest that the warrant is linked to grave allegations involving financial mismanagement, corruption, and the possible misuse of public and political funds, accusations that have long lingered around Malema and the economic freedom fighters like a persistent shadow. For years, even as the EFF expanded its influence and entrenched itself as a formidable force in opposition politics, Malema's rise from a controversial activist figure to a powerful national leader was accompanied by persistent whispers of impropriety, questions about funding, and concerns over accountability. But the reported involvement of international legal bodies has now elevated these suspicions to an entirely new and far more consequential level. President Cyril Ramaphosa finds himself at the center of this unfolding storm, facing an extraordinarily delicate balancing act as both head of state and leader of the African National Congress, tasked with upholding the rule of law while navigating the volatile realities of a deeply divided and politically charged nation. His response has been deliberately measured and cautious, reflecting the immense pressure bearing down on his leadership, and during a rare, closely watched press briefing, Ramaphosa addressed the nation with a tone that combined restraint, concern, and understated authority, emphasizing that the law must apply equally to all individuals regardless of political power or influence and declaring unequivocally that no one stands above accountability. Although he stopped short of directly condemning Malema by name, analysts widely interpreted his remarks as a pointed message aimed squarely at the EFF leader, signaling that the ANC and the state were monitoring developments closely and expected full transparency and cooperation from all political actors. Complicating matters further, Ramaphosa also addressed the controversial arrest of Cat Matlala, a prominent and outspoken socio-political activist whose detention has sparked intense debate, confusion, and speculation across the country, with many South Africans questioning whether the arrest is purely a matter of law or whether it carries deeper political motivations tied to the broader power struggle unfolding ahead of crucial elections. In addressing Matlala's case, Ramaphosa carefully avoided making direct accusations or assigning blame, instead stressing the importance of an independent judiciary free from political interference and reaffirming that justice must remain blind and impartial, a principle central to South Africa's democratic identity since the end of apartheid, while subtly warning that any attempt to manipulate legal processes for political gain would not be tolerated, a statement many observers believe was directed at both Malema supporters and hardline elements within the ANC itself. The timing of Matlala's arrest, occurring almost simultaneously with reports of the international warrant against Malema, has added fuel to an already volatile situation, particularly given Matlala's long history as a fierce critic of both the ANC and the EFF, often using public platforms to expose what he perceives as corruption, hypocrisy, and abuse of power within South Africa's political elite. For many analysts and ordinary citizens, the overlap between these two developments appears too coincidental to dismiss, prompting widespread suspicion and speculation about coordinated political maneuvering behind the scenes. Critics argue that Matlala's detention may form part of a broader strategy to divert attention from Malema's legal troubles, weaken dissenting voices, or reshape the political narrative in favor of the ANC, while others suggest it reflects a struggle among competing power centers seeking to influence the trajectory of the country ahead of national elections. This convergence of events has sparked a surge of conspiracy theories and heated debate across digital platforms such as X, Facebook, and TikTok, where hashtags linked to Malema, Ramaphosa, and Matlala have trended nationwide, highlighting the powerful and sometimes destabilizing role of social media in shaping political discourse, mobilizing supporters, and amplifying polarization. Supporters of Malema have framed the alleged warrant as evidence of political persecution, portraying him as a victim of an establishment fearful of his growing influence, while critics argue that the reported legal action represents long overdue accountability for alleged misconduct that has gone unchecked for years, and at the same time, Ramaphosa's leadership has come under intense scrutiny, with some accusing him of weaponizing state institutions against opponents and others defending him as a guardian of constitutional order and democratic integrity. Political commentators have increasingly described Matlala's arrest as a critical test of South Africa's judicial independence, warning that any perception of political interference by the presidency or the ANC could severely erode public trust in the legal system and the government as a whole, potentially destabilizing the country's democratic foundations and undermining its hard-won reputation for constitutional governance. Ramaphosa now walks a political tightrope, needing to demonstrate that the law operates independently while avoiding any appearance of selectively targeting political adversaries, and his every statement, silence, and gesture is being scrutinized, interpreted, and contested through sharply divided political lenses. Refusing to remain silent, Julius Malema has launched a vocal and confrontational campaign to defend himself through rallies, press statements, and social media, vehemently denying all allegations and accusing his rivals of orchestrating a coordinated smear campaign designed to destroy his credibility and weaken the EFF ahead of elections. His rhetoric has been emotionally charged and deliberately provocative, further intensifying political polarization, but it has also succeeded in rallying his loyal supporters, who have closed ranks around him and embraced the narrative of political victimhood. Analysts suggest that Malema's strategy serves multiple purposes, first energizing and unifying his base by framing the crisis as an attack by powerful interests threatened by his challenge to the status quo, and second placing sustained pressure on Ramaphosa and the ANC by recasting the situation as a struggle between political freedom and judicial overreach, forcing the government to continually defend itself against accusations of abusing legal mechanisms for partisan gain. Within the ANC, these developments have generated significant unease, with party insiders reportedly divided over how to respond to the twin pressures of an alleged international legal case against a major opposition leader and the controversial detention of a high-profile activist, both of which carry serious implications for upcoming elections and the party's moral standing. The ANC faces the difficult task of projecting strength, fairness, and respect for the rule of law while avoiding any impression of manipulation or political vengeance, a balancing act that has fueled internal tension between those advocating a more aggressive posture and those urging restraint and caution. Ramaphosa's leadership, once widely praised for its steadiness and commitment to reform, is now under intense examination, with critics arguing that a single misstep could deepen divisions within the party and the nation, empower opposition forces, and weaken his position internally, while supporters maintain that his measured approach reflects maturity, responsibility, and genuine respect for democratic principles, asserting that allowing legal processes to unfold without interference is the truest test of leadership. As South Africa watches these events unfold, the stakes could scarcely be higher, because the intertwined situations involving Malema, Matlala, and Ramaphosa represent far more than a moment of political drama. They constitute a defining test of the country's democratic resilience, institutional independence, and political maturity. Every decision taken by the presidency, the judiciary, and political leaders will carry long-term consequences, shaping public trust, political culture, and governance for years to come, while the international community closely observes how South Africa manages this crisis, aware that its response will influence the country's global reputation, investment climate, and diplomatic standing. In the months ahead, these issues are likely to dominate public discourse, parliamentary proceedings, and election campaigns, as questions surrounding Malema's accountability or vindication, the legality and motivation behind Matlala's arrest, and Ramaphosa's ability to navigate this storm without undermining democratic norms will collectively determine the trajectory of South African politics. And whatever the outcomes, one reality remains unavoidable: the choices made during this period will echo far into the future, shaping the nation's democratic integrity, political stability, and place on the global stage.